I really quickly just want to go over the brochure project so that there's no question. That's kind of hard to read this with all this text that I have here and fully understand it. So I'm just going to step through it really quickly for you so that you kind of understand what it is that you need to do. All right, so for this project, you are going to pretend that you are a digital designer that works for Arizona State University and for the College of Innovation and Technology, which is, what we're part of. And your job is to create a recruitment brochure for the GIT program. So that is what this whole project is about, is that you're going to create a brochure for this program. Since you work for the university and you're developing something for the university, pretend, you have to follow the guidelines, the ASU guidelines, design guidelines. And the reason why I'm making you do this is because if you work for a client, whether you're designing a brochure or a website or anything, very often, particularly if it's a big client and a big company, they have some design guidelines already set up. So they might have a logo, they might have specific colors that they work with, specific fonts that they work with, and if you don't follow those guidelines, your client is going to be unhappy with you, and you either will not get any more clients because you don't follow their guidelines, or if you work for somebody, they are going to be unhappy with you if you don't follow those guidelines. The guidelines are there for a reason. It's to build the brand, to make sure that people can identify with the brand and identify the brand itself. So it's really important to stick with the guidelines that you are given. The guidelines themselves can be found at this URL right here. It's basically comguide.asu.edu, so COMM guide.asu.edu. The official font for ASU is called Ascendance Grotesque, which is a really weird name, but it's that blocky kind of heavy font that ASU uses a lot. You may substitute it for Arial or Arial, so Arial Bold or Arial Black, which is a whole different font from Arial. You can use those instead. That will be fine. This brochure needs to be two-sided, so that means it will be printed on. We're not going to print it, but we're going to pretend that it would be printed on two sides. So you're going to have 2 pages in your InDesign document. And then the page itself will be folded in half. So the example here shows the one piece of paper, it's printed on both sides, and then it's folded in half to create the brochure. So there's actually 4 pages in this. So when you create your InDesign document, you're going to create facing pages, 4 facing pages, or you can do 2 not facing pages and do the whole page design on each side that way. But doing it this way, if you do facing pages and treat each of those panels from where the fold is, so this is one page and this is another page in your InDesign document, it'll be easier to keep it straight and understand where that fold is, because that fold is really important. You need to make, if you have anything on that fold, you want to make sure that that's right dead center. And the easiest way to do that is to create separate pages in your document. So you could either set it as a 4-page facing document or a 2-page non-facing document, and your pages will be different sizes if you do that. Now, I understand I may have confused you horribly, so I'm going to actually start a new document so you can see. So if you're going to use facing pages, you will have 4 pages. You'll have the front page, you have the 2 inside pages, and then you'll have a back page. So if I was to do this in InDesign, that way I would say 4 pages, and I would make sure it's facing pages. Now, the whole document should be letter size. So if you're going to do facing pages, you want to do half of a letter size. So you can actually pick half of a letter size. Now I have this still in picas instead of inches, so it looks kind of goofy. But basically, I want to make sure the orientation is this horizontal orientation if I do that, so that it will split the page right in half. Now this is going to be really big, so let me put it smaller so you can see it. And go to my layers. I'm sorry, pages. And so now you'll see a double spread. So that's one page and that's one page. And let me drag this other thing over here so you can see it. So here's my whole document. So I'm going to have, this is how it would be if you used facing pages. So you would have 4 pages, they would be half pages, and then you could design each of these pages separately. Now if you didn't want to do 4 separate pages and you just want to do the front side of your 11.5 or 8.5 by 11 page as one page and the inside as one page, you could do that too. So the setup for that would be you would only have 2 pages and they would be whole pages and not facing. So instead of the half pages, and actually would do the orientation on this the other way. So let's do the orientation that way. So now instead, so the way it would work is half of this, the first page, if I was on page 1, half of this would be the front page, half of this would be the back page, and this page 2 of this would be the 2 inside panels of your brochure. But I think it's much easier if you design it as facing pages, facing half pages, because then you don't have to think so hard about where the front page is and where the back page is. It really is up to you on how you want to do that. All right, so I'm going to go back to our site. All right, so pretty much explain that ad nauseum. You should understand. So unfolded, your design would be 8.5 by 11 inches. And I also have a template example here. You have to do this in InDesign, so the template is just trying to kind of get you, so if you want to print it out and kind of fold it and figure it out, that's kind of how I like to do it. And that's also a good way that you can create a kind of a mock-up, is to download that template, print it, fold it, and then do your kind of a pencil in a mock-up, and then you can kind of understand where things are supposed to go when you get to your InDesign document. I do say that it should set to facing pages, but again, it just depends on how you want to design it. It really helps to go to preferences and set the units and measurements to inches, not pixels of picas. It defaults to picas, as you know, but it's just a little easier to kind of do these other things. Now you need to make sure you have a bleed set. So that bleed, if you remember, is if you have something that goes to the edge of your document, you have to have a bleed. And I want you to have bleeds, so make sure that you set that bleed. Okay, so that's how you need to set up your document. What do you need to include? This is what you need to include. You need to have at least 4 photographs. All right. There's some links in here that for some ASU photos that you can use. This is what you need to make sure of. Be sure that your effective PPI of all images is 250 pixels or more. Do not save off of websites and use those. Because if they start out at 72 DPI or PPI, even if it says the effective PPI is 250, it's not going to look good. All right, those are images that have been saved specifically to work on websites. You want to start with images that are higher res and to get them to be have an effective PPI of 250 or more that look good when printed. So these photographs and anything else that you use, you need to save them down when you save them off the internet. You can save them off the internet, but they need to be high res when you save them off the internet. You can't just save them off a website. You can't go to the ASU website and just pick the logo at the top of the page and save it, because that has been saved specifically for use on a website, not on a print document. Now, I know I'm probably contradicting myself here where I'm saying you can go down and save it off this website, but don't save it off a website. What I mean is you can save images and graphics off of websites that are offering high-res images. For example, on Flickr.com, you can download high-res images. You can't do a right click and save as usually and get a high res image. So that's the difference. So you need to have 4 photographs. You also need to have the ASU College of Technology and Innovation logo and any ASU logo. This link right here will goes to a web page on the ASU website, in the Com Guide website, that will allow you to download high-res logos. And there are a variety of both the College of Technology. Oh, I wrote that wrong. It's College of Innovation and Technology, backwards. And there's a variety of ASU logos. And I don't really care which ones you use as long as you have one of each of those. And you can download those there. You can download them. They're available in a variety of formats. There's JPEG, there's EPS, which is vector, or I think there's even PNG ones now. The PNG ones are the best because they're vector images, but they're designed for use on the web. Well, actually, probably the vector ones would be best for what we're doing. So forget what I just said about PNG. Although PNGs work, vectors so EPS are the best, and those are basically Illustrator files. But you can import .eps files right into InDesign. So those are the best to use for your print documents. And then the last thing you need to make sure, as far as visuals, that you need to include is graphic elements, such as rules, which are lines. You use photos as backgrounds. You include shapes. Whatever you want to do to kind of make the design interesting and attractive, you can do. Remember, if you bring things to the edge of your document, you need to extend those things past the edge or the trim line of the document to the bleed line. As far as the text that you're going to put in your brochure, you need to use the required text for ASU GIT recruitment brochure. It is a Word document right here for you to download. That's the text you can use. Now you can use that text in any order, or lay it out however you want, but you need to use that text. You don't need to make up your own text. You can use that text, but it needs to make sense in the layout of where it's placed and what images it's placed with, and that thing. Whatever works for your design, that's what you need to do. And then also make sure that you include the contact information. If this is a recruitment brochure, so who do they call? Where can they email? What's the website? All that kind of stuff, you need to include that on your brochure somewhere. Next, there's a little section right here. This is where you can, I talk about where you can go to get stuff for your brochure. So again, the logos are located at this page. You can download ASU photographs, which I don't have the link here right now, but I'll add it. I promise. I must have forgot that. if you want to use your own photos, you can if you have good quality ASU photos. Um, that's fine. Being that you guys are online students, I'm thinking you probably don't. So if you do have them and you want to use them, just ask me first. Otherwise, use the ones that you can get from the link that I don't have here yet, okay? But I will put it there, I promise. And again, there's the link for the text for you, so you can just use that however you want to. All right, so once you get it all designed and you have all your bleed set and all the pages set and everything, that's how, then you need to output it in a way that you can get it to me. So the first thing you need to do is export it to a PDF. Actually, I should have put this in a different order. The best thing to do first is to take it through the pre-flight process. And if you remember, that's where down here, if you have a little red light, that means that you have errors, and you just need to click on this little down arrow and open up your pre-flight panel, which will tell you what your errors are. So that's always a good thing to do, even before you export it to PDF. Once you're pretty sure it's in good shape, you want to export it. Go ahead and export it to PDF using the PDF/X1-A 2001 preset. When you do that, make sure you save it as a print PDF, not an interactive PDF. Make sure your bleed is set. Either you set it in the presets of the document setup or you set it here. It's better to set it in the preset when you set your document up in the first place, because then you have your bleed lines there while you're working and you can see it. And then make sure the printer's marks are that checkbox is checked, and that you have crop marks and bleed marks, so that when you export out to PDF, those crop marks and those bleed marks are also on the PDF. And then make sure that you save it project 3. You can have an underscore here if you want. Your last name and your first, well, you don't need to do your first initial because you guys all have different names, so that's good. And then go ahead and save that. After you've saved it as a PDF, go ahead and package your document, and in the information dialog box that pops up, make sure, excuse me, you put the name of your brochure in the file name field. You can name it whatever you want, and then make sure your name is in the contact field. And then when you get to the checkbox where it asks you, or the dialog box where it asks you what you want to include, make sure that you have the copy fonts, the copy linked graphics, and the update graphic links in package boxes checked before you do the final save. And then go ahead and name it the same thing as you named it before, and then tell it to package. And then once you've done that, take all those things that came out of the files that were created when you packaged it, and the PDF that you made in the first place, and then zip all those together for me, and then that's what you're going to submit to me. I'm not exactly sure of the due date by looking at this. Here, actually. Well, before I get to that, I really want to point this out. Every semester, at least on my face-to-face classes, somebody downloads the brochure off the GIT website, the ASU website, and their brochure looks suspiciously like the brochure that's online. I don't want that. I don't want it to look exactly like that. It's going to have probably some photos in common. Obviously, it's going to look somewhat like it because of the design guidelines, but I don't want to see any of that. Okay, so once you've done all of that, you just need to submit it to the Dropbox, which is in week 5, right there. Or obviously, easier way to do it is just go to the Dropbox thing, because that actually just takes you to there. And it is going to also be due on 9/25, so that's next Wednesday. You don't have much time, so you're going to have to work pretty hard this week. I'm doing that so that next week I can, when I give you your final project, you'll have more time to spend on it than this one. The final project, you'll get to have a little more leeway on what you do and the actual design, whereas this one you have to follow the ASU guidelines. So that's it. Good luck and do the best you can in the short amount of time that you have.